To the Algerian people inside and outside the country on the occasion of the celebration of the Amazigh New Year. And UNRWA has affirmed that the children in the Gaza Strip were still living in disastrous conditions imposed by the Israeli occupying authorities on the entry of humanitarian aid. Those were the headlines, and now the news in detail from Radio Algeria International. First in our news, the President of the Republic, Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces and Minister of National Defense, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, is currently chairing a meeting of the Council of Ministers. The meeting is tackling the progress report on digitalization, the 2026 agricultural sector roadmap, and the follow-up on the 2025-2026 planting campaign. The President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, has offered his warmest congratulations to the Algerian people inside and outside the country on the occasion of the celebration of the Amazigh New Year. In a post published on his account on X platform, President Tebboune wrote that Algeria will always remain victorious and proud. And the Speaker of the Council of the Nation, Azzouz Nasri, has congratulated the Algerian people on the occasion of the celebration of the Amazigh New Year, Yenayer 2976. In a post published on his account on X platform, Mr. Nasri said that the Amazigh New Year, Yenayer 2976, is an occasion deeply rooted in our history and which reflects the richness of our national identity and embodies the pride of Algerian men and women in their authenticity and deep-rooted civilization, adding that Yenayer is a symbol of unity and cohesion, a symbol of an Algeria faithful to its memory. Earlier, the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, extended his condolences to the family of the late Hajj Mohammed Ashur Kharazi, one of the leading figures in the province of Adrar. The President emphasized that the late Mr. Kharazi was renowned for his remarkable role in promoting the tourism sector and his contribution to showcasing the natural diversity and archaeological sites of southern Algeria. The Minister Delegate to the Minister of National Defense and Chief of Staff of the People's National Army, General Saad Chingri, has extended on his behalf and on behalf of all members of the People's National Army his deepest condolences and heartfelt sympathy to the family of late Major Redouane Abdelmoumen, affiliated with the Directorate of Information and Communication of the General Staff of the People's National Army, who passed away on Saturday following a long illness. To the Middle East now, where UNRWA has affirmed that the children in the Gaza Strip were still living in disastrous conditions on account of the restrictions imposed by the Israeli occupying authorities on the entry of humanitarian aid. Mariam Bersha has more details.
The UN agency stressed on its official website that the children of Gaza should benefit from heat, food, and the necessary security to contemplate their future. It pointed out that there was an urgent need to allow in humanitarian aid, reiterating that like other humanitarian organizations, it will pursue its action and was ready to expand its assistance. According to the news agency Wafa, one baby died of cold in Deir el-Balah, in the central region of Gaza. It depicts the seriousness of the humanitarian situation, particularly children and those displaced living in shelters. This brought to 443 the number of Palestinians killed since the coming into force of the ceasefire last October. Meanwhile, at least 2 Palestinians were today killed in airstrikes carried out by the Israeli army against various areas of notably the eastern part of the refugee camp of El Bureij in the central part of the enclave. The Israeli occupying army pursued its attacks on the West Bank amid an expansion of the Jewish settlement building in the Palestinian territory. The Israeli army's attacks coincided with a violent campaign waged by Jewish settlers against the Palestinian population with the aim of stripping them of their land and properties. In this connection, several militants have staged a demonstration in New York to denounce the holding of a conference devoted to real estate, notably to the promotion of property investment in some areas of the West Bank, including occupied Jerusalem. The news agency Wafa stressed that the protesters chanted slogans denouncing such initiatives, which they said are designed to sell real estate projects implemented on land belonging to Palestinians.
And Somalia's defense minister has affirmed that the recognition by the Israeli occupying authorities of the so-called Somaliland region constituted a serious violation of international law and an attempt to the country's sovereignty. Mariam Bashir reports again.
In a statement made to the press, Somalia's defense minister recalled that the Israeli occupying authorities had no legal or legitimate right to grant sovereignty to an entity located inside a sovereign state. The Somalian official stressed that the Israeli decision represented a direct act of aggression against Somalia's territorial unity, the more so as more than half of the region, formerly known as Somaliland, have expressed over the past 2 years their attachment to the Federal Republic. He affirmed that the Israeli occupying authorities were seeking to set up a military base in the region on account of its strategic location, and warned that such a divisive project was aimed at destabilizing the region. The Somalian defense minister stated that his country would resort to all legal and diplomatic means to thwart such plans, while underlining that the African Union is aware of the seriousness of such a precedent on the stability of the continent.
According to official figures released by the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, UNHCR, in Chad, more than 900,000 Sudanese refugees fleeing violence and conflict in their country have sought refuge in Chad since April 2023. The UN agency reported that 1 in 3 people in the east of the country are refugees, adding that many arrive with or almost nothing, exhausted and traumatized, but driven by hope. According to UNHCR office in Chad, from the very first days of the crisis, Chadians opened their doors, shared their food and offered shelter, often well before the arrival of humanitarian aid. And bomb attacks were carried out against 11 patrol stations in southern Thailand on Sunday, injuring 4 people. Several bombs detonated within 40 minutes on Sunday, setting fire to 11 patrol stations in the province of Narathiwat, Patani and Diyala. Narathiwat Governor Buchai Homyayin said that a group of men whose number is unknown came and detonated bombs that damaged the petrol pumps, adding that police officer had been injured. And several thousand farmers have gathered in Athlone in Central Ireland to protest against the free trade agreement between the European Union and the South American bloc Mercosur. Like its French, Hungarian, Polish and Austrian counterparts, the Irish government opposed the conclusion of this agreement, which has sparked strong opposition from the agricultural sector, with fears of cheaper products arriving that do not necessarily comply with EU standards. On Saturday, anger continued to simmer in France, with several protests taking place, notably at the port of Le Havre, located in the western part of the country. The day before, demonstrations and protests by farmers also took place in Poland and Belgium. In Ireland, farmers are particularly concerned about competition from cheaper imported beef. The main agricultural union, the Irish Farmers Association, described the European Green Light as very disappointing and called on MPs to oppose it. The European Parliament has yet to vote on the next, which has been negotiated for more than 25 years between the EU and the South American bloc Mercosur, comprising Brazil, Paraguay, Argentina and Uruguay. It would create one of the largest free trade areas in the world, with more than 700 million consumers. For its supporters, such as Germany and Spain, it will, on the contrary, boost the struggling European economy by removing a large proportion of customs duties, which would favor European exports of cars, machinery, wine and cheese. And finally, the national and official celebrations of the Amazigh New Year, Yenayer 2976, kicked off on Saturday in the province of Beni Abbas, with notably on the agenda the 6th edition of the President of the Republic's Prize for Amazigh Literature and Language, held under the high patronage of the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmadjid Tebboune. The opening ceremony of these events, which are taking place from January 10 to 12, under the slogan "From Beni Abbas, Yenayer shines for a victorious Algeria," was presided over by the Secretary General of the High Commission for Amazigh Affairs, C. El Hashmi Assad, in the presence of advisors to the President of the Republic, a representative to the Ministry of the Ministry of National Defense, the National Commissioner for Child Protection, Mariam Sharfi, local authorities, and guests. The rich and diverse program planned for these celebrations includes a series of cultural and artistic activities. With this, we come to the end of this news bulletin. Time now for weekly programs, starting with the international event of the week. It will be followed by a special program devoted to the celebration of Yunair. As for me, I'll meet you again tomorrow for a fresh edition of our news bulletin. Until then, stay tuned to Radio Algeria International, and bye-bye for now.
The international event of the week.
Yemen has been facing for years now one of the worst humanitarian crises. More than a decade of conflict has plunged the country into poverty and famine, putting at risk the stability of the whole region. Since the outbreak of the conflict in 2015, Yemen has been going through a brutal war involving internal factions amid airstrikes carried out by the Saudi-led coalition and the blockade that have destroyed vital infrastructure, hospitals, schools and water systems. Today, more than two-thirds of Yemen's population depends on humanitarian aid to survive. Millions face acute food insecurity and famine persist in several regions of the country. Several humanitarian organizations have warned against the serious crisis, with alarming levels of malnutrition threatening children. The collapse of Yemen's healthcare system has further deepened the crisis. Preventable diseases such as cholera continue to spread, worsened by a lack of clean water, of electricity and medical supplies. Asked about how the disastrous humanitarian situation in Yemen could be tackled rapidly, while the mediation efforts are stumbling over securing a lasting ceasefire and launching an inclusive political process, our political analyst, Hamoud Salhi, has this to say.
For over a decade, Yemen has been trapped in one of the world's most severe humanitarian crises. Food insecurity remains one of the most alarming consequences of this crisis. Yemen is now ranked as the third most food insecure country in the world. According to the United Nations' latest report, nearly 17 million people are suffering from food insecurity. 1 out of every 5 Yemenis goes a full day without food, while half of the population experiences severe food deprivation. For many families, hunger is a daily reality. The crisis is further intensified by deadly disease outbreaks. High fatality rates from illnesses such as cholera and measles continue to claim life, largely because access to treatment and preventive vaccines is severely limited. A weakened health system is unable to meet even basic medical needs. Adding to this suffering is the total collapse of the Yemen's economy. With little to no income, families cannot afford food, medicine, or transportation to health facilities, even when aid is available. This situation demands immediate and decisive actions. First and foremost, securing lasting peace must be a priority. Continued mediation efforts are essential to preventing further displacement and restoring stability across the country. Peace would protect civilians and allow humanitarian assistance, especially food aid, to reach the most desperate and hard-to-access areas. Peace would pave the way for a stronger humanitarian response. This includes increased funding from the United Nations, which is currently operating at only 25% of what is needed to bring meaningful relief and improve food security for Yemenis. Closing this funding gap, is critical to saving lives and preventing further deterioration. Addressing Yemen's humanitarian crisis is not optional. It is a moral and humanitarian imperative. Without urgent action, millions will continue to suffer from hunger, disease, and displacement. With coordinated peace efforts and adequate humanitarian support, there is still a chance to change the course of the crisis and restoring hope to the people of Yemen.
The conflict in Yemen has had serious repercussions across the region. The situation in the strategic location along the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, considered a vital shipping lane connecting the Red Sea to the Indian Ocean, is scrutinized as its instability may pose a threat to global trade and energy routes. The conflict in Yemen has intensified regional tensions as the refugees flows and human trafficking have increased, putting additional strain on neighboring countries. Asked if the international community will respond to the call recently made by the United Nations, which affirms that its humanitarian aid plans for Yemen are only 25% funded, our political analyst Hamad Salhi commented the issue.
Yemen is not in the headlines today, but for millions of Yemenis, the crisis has not paused. This week, the United Nations Security Council met to discuss Yemen. Outside diplomatic circles, the meeting barely registered in the media or elsewhere. Yet inside the room, the message was clear and consistent. More must be done. A year ago, the United Nations launched Yemen's Humanitarian Needs and Response Plan, appealing for $2.47 billion to reach the most vulnerable, 10.5 million people out of 19.5 million in need. These are families who depend on assistance for food, basic health care, clean water, and protection, services that determine whether daily life remains survivable. By the end of last year, the United Nations delivered an alarming update. The plan was funded at just 25%. At that level, assistance shifts from being truly life-saving to a last resort. As per the United Nations, aid agencies are forced to reduce food distribution, limit health services, scale back water system, and cut protection program, while need continue to rise as per the UN. And even that shortfall represented progress and improvement. Earlier on 21 May 2025, donors, UN agencies, financial institutions, and humanitarian organizations gathered in Brussels for the 7th Yemen Humanitarian Senior Officials Meeting. The co-chairs spoke openly about their concern. Conditions inside Yemen were deteriorating, but global support was falling away. At that point, funding stood at only 9%, a gap so wide that it threatened the foundations of the entire response. Yemen, indeed, doesn't need a dramatic declaration, as we have seen in the United Nations. It needs a steady commitment from the UN and the international community.
Despite ongoing diplomatic efforts, a lasting political solution to Yemen's conflict remains exclusive, as humanitarian organizations warn that aid alone cannot resolve the crisis. Unless a sustainable peace is achieved, the crisis besetting Yemen will claim more lives and deepen the people's despair.
Welcome to this program devoted to Yenayer's celebrations. People in Algeria celebrate the Amazigh New Year, or Yenayer, on January the 12th with traditional festivities, special food and parties reflecting their cultural heritage and ethnic pride. The annual event known as Yenayer marks the beginning of the new farming year. The origin of the celebration is unclear. Some think that the Amazigh calendar dates back to the victory achieved by Amazigh king Shashnaq against the pharaohs in a battle fought on the banks of the Nile in 950 BC. Writer Rashid Malika says in his book The Early Berbers Between the Mediterranean City and the Nile that after defeating the pharaohs, the Berber king announced the birth of the 23rd Berber dynasty, and thus began the Amazigh calendar. Algeria celebrates the Amazigh New Year by organizing festivities that differ from one region to another. In the provinces of Tizi Ouzou, Bouira, Boumerdès and Béjaïa, speaking predominantly Tamazight language, many children wear ornamental henna tattoos and families prepare traditional dishes such as couscous with meat of a home-slaughtered rooster. To mark the occasion, circumcisions may also be performed. These celebrations symbolize the relation between man and nature.
الصندوق صندوق تفكر دودي لملا الصندوق ياكنا نتشرب وقال ياكنا نتشرب وقال.
The Amazigh of the Algerian desert, known as the Tuareg, celebrates the day with their unique music, dance and traditional dishes. A rich music program marked the official launching of the Amazigh New Year, or Yenayer celebrations, in the southern province of Tamanrasset with the 9th National Cultural Festival devoted to Amazigh music. The artistic event was given the kickoff at the House of Culture of the capital of the Ahaggar, with the participation of different music troupes from the various regions of the country, performing different genres of the Amazigh music, as well as local folkloric shows and dances, with a big attendance of visitors who came to enjoy the show and celebrate the Amazigh New Year. Zorna notes and Imzad sonorities will be part of the show, with poetry lectures as well in the Tamazight language. And a special jury will evaluate the performances of the participating troops representing the Amazigh, Shawi, Tergi, Mozabit and Kabyle music genres, and will choose the winner of the best singing and music. There will be also high on the agenda of the program of the Cultural Amazigh Music Festival artistic nights, with local troops performing the Tergi music genre such as Imesli, Nahektan and Amanir. The commission of the festival also projected a photo exhibition on the various activities of the festival, as well as the visits to the Museum of the Ahaggar National Cultural Park and other touristic sites of the region. Let's recall that these events will take place during 3 days in a row. The new Amazigh year, or Ikhfu Asugas Amenzu Aninar, or Yinar, first month of the Amazigh calendar, is celebrated in the eastern part of the country, notably in Khanshla and Betna, with many traditions passed from a generation to another by Oris grandmothers. The special dinner is marked on the 12th of January with a celebration known as Amensi Animar, meaning literally the dinner of Yenayer. In the locality of Ouled Ousif, in the mountainous region of Shelia, having wonderful forests, the festive atmosphere of Yenayer is particularly special, with women starting their preparations a day or two in advance. Amazigh community, the Chenwa, named after the Chenwa Mountains in Tipaza province, celebrate by preparing special bread during using herbs collected from the wilderness. Some non-Amazigh regions of Algeria also join in the New Year's events. In the western city of Tlemcen, young and old celebrate Yenayer together. Directly after sunset prayers, family members have dinner and exchange gifts. Tlemcen children await a visit from Yenayer woman, who goes around by night from house to house bringing candy and presents. From the region of Tlemcen, Jafar Dahesh tells us more about Yenayer celebrations in this western city.
The celebration of Amazigh New Year coincided with the 12th of January of each year, promises to be exceptional this year in the western province of Tlemcen due to the new national dimension it is given. For that purpose, a whole week of Amazigh cultural patrimony organized by both local culture and youth and sports directions will be dedicated to this event in the locality of Beni Snus, which has been selected to host the opening ceremonies. According to the director of signs announcing the beginnings of this festival are perceptible for a few days now in the streets and commercial places where all kinds of products and sweeties are exhibited, like dried figs and seasonal fruit, in spite of their expensive prices. Traditionally, on the eve of January the 11th to the 12th, all members of the round Biqa of Yenayer after dinner to attend in a friendly atmosphere the sharing of food and other sweeties. The region of Beni Snus is also known for its legendary Carnival of Eirad, where a parade will set the tone for the event with a festive show excitement. This cultural event, which lasts 3 days, allows the Snusi inhabitants to disguise themselves and work in various groupings around the houses to collect food and various products, which will be thereafter distributed to the poor and the needy of the village.
To highlight Algeria's cultural diversity, events and seminars are organized across the country's regions to mark the occasion of Yenayer. The Algiers Center for Culture and Arts, for example, organized traditional industry exhibitions and music concerts featuring artists from Amazigh regions. And here in Algiers, the official celebrations started with varied dishes such as couscous, sirfis or shirsham, shared with visitors to discover the culinary traditions of each region. Traditional costumes and handicraft items are also exhibited on the occasion. So we invite you all to celebrate this big event with your relatives and friends. On the occasion, Radio Algeria International wishes you a happy New Year. As a guest, to everyone.